I was standing in my hotel room in Chicago, hands trembling, as I watched the sheriff's car pull up to my childhood home through the grainy security camera feed on my phone, when I realized that everything I thought I knew about unconditional love had been a lie. The house that my grandmother had left me, the one place that was supposed to be my sanctuary, was about to become a crime scene, and my parents were about to learn that their daughter, the one they called their burden, their ATM machine, wasn't as stupid as they thought. But before you hear how this all ends, if you're enjoying this story of standing up against toxic family members, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me if you've ever dealt with narcissistic parents. Your support means everything, and trust me, you'll want to stick around for how this plays out. Let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. My name is Annabelle Chen. I'm 30 years old with a Columbia marketing degree, a six-figure salary in Manhattan, and a $1 million Victorian in Westchester County that my grandmother left me. Grandma Liu was the only person who ever truly loved me, who saw me as more than a means to an end. My parents were different. Harold, a failed day trader, who preferred the horse track to actual work. Marilyn, a former beauty queen, who married for money that never existed. They raised me in a cramped Flushing apartment, making sure I knew from day one that I owed them everything. Love in our family came with conditions. Good grades meant duty fulfilled. Bad grades meant I was ungrateful. When I got into Columbia on full scholarship at 17, my father asked when I'd start sending money home. My mother threw me a graduation party we couldn't afford, then handed me the bill. Every hug had a price tag. Every encouragement came with a reminder of debt. The manipulation started early. At 8, I cried when my father forgot to pick me up from school. My mother sat me down and explained I was being selfish. Didn't I know how hard Daddy worked? Even at 8, I learned to swallow hurt and apologize for having feelings. When I graduated college with a $65,000 job offer, my parents threw another party and announced their daughter would take care of them now. At 22, before my first paycheck, they arrived at my Washington Heights studio with an itemized list of debts totaling $38,000, credit cards, loans, loan sharks. My father looked me in the eye and said, "We raised you for this moment." I paid it off in 2 years, living on ramen and 16-hour days. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong. When Grandma Liu died and left me her house, I cried for 3 days. Not just from grief, but knowing what was coming. At the funeral reception, my father asked if I'd sell. When I refused, wanting to keep it as her memory, he looked like I'd spit in his face. My mother didn't speak to me for 2 months. I renovated that house with my own money. Hardwood floors, gourmet kitchen, a garden where Grandma's roses bloomed. It was my sanctuary, the one place truly mine. For 6 months I could finally breathe. Then my parents had financial problems again. My father lost $20,000 in sports betting to dangerous people. My mother's shopping addiction spiraled, and they faced eviction. They called crying begging, promising just a few weeks until they got back on their feet. I said yes. God help me, I said yes. My therapist, Dr. Kowalski, warned me against it. She'd been helping me understand this wasn't normal parenting, that the guilt wasn't mine to bear. But I wanted so badly to believe they could love me like normal parents. They moved in that Friday in September. By Sunday, I knew I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Weeks turned to months. They took over like an invading army. My father commandeered my office for gambling, burning cigarette marks on Grandma's antique desk. My mother redecorated without asking, throwing out Grandma's photo albums and mementos because they didn't match her aesthetic. When I protested, they said I was dramatic. It was just stuff. Didn't I care more about family? The parties were relentless. Every weekend, sometimes weekdays, they'd invite friends over. Grilling, music blasting until 2 a.m., showing off my house as theirs. I'd come home to strangers drinking my wine, eating my food, asking if I was the daughter they'd heard about. My father would announce loudly, "This is Annabelle, our little success story. We did a pretty good job raising her, didn't we?" Soon, I started staying late at work, then booking hotel rooms, claiming early meetings. Anything to avoid my former sanctuary. The bills kept coming. Cable packages, streaming services, furniture deliveries, restaurant charges. When I confronted my mother about $3,000 at Nordstrom, she looked wounded. I needed clothes for the charity luncheon. You wouldn't want me to embarrass you by looking poor, would you? 5 months in, things started disappearing. Grandma's pearl necklace, a limited edition art book, cash from my desk. When I asked, they acted offended. How dare I accuse them of stealing? After giving me life itself. This was how I repaid them. I called my best friend Vivian Wong. She was a lawyer specializing in estate disputes and family law, a shark in a pencil skirt. We'd met at Columbia bonding over impossible immigrant parent expectations, though her family had actual money. She'd been telling me for months to get them out, that they were bleeding me dry. But I kept making excuses. "Anna," she said over drinks at a bar near her office in Midtown, "they're not going to leave voluntarily. You know that, right? You're going to have to force them out, and it's going to get ugly." "They're my parents," I whispered, stirring my Manhattan without drinking it. "I can't just throw them out on the street." "They would do it to you in a heartbeat," Vivian said, her voice hard but not unkind. "Wake up, babe. This isn't love. This is exploitation." But I still wasn't ready to hear it. Some part of me, that 8-year-old girl who just wanted her daddy to pick her up from school, still believed that if I tried hard enough, gave enough, sacrificed enough, my parents would finally see me as more than a bank account with legs. In December, I had to fly to Chicago for a week-long conference. My company was launching a new product, and I was heading the marketing campaign. It was a huge opportunity, the kind of thing that could lead to a promotion and a substantial raise. I was excited but anxious about leaving my house in my parents' care for that long. The night before I left, my mother made me dinner. It was the first time she'd cooked for me since moving in, and I was touched despite myself. She made all my childhood favorites, dan dan noodles and mapo tofu, and Grandma's recipe for red braised pork. We ate together at the dining room table, and she asked about my work, seemed genuinely interested in my life. My father even put down his phone for more than 5 minutes. For a moment, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, things were getting better. "We're so proud of you, Annabelle," my mother said, reaching across the table to pat my hand. Her nails were freshly manicured, probably another $100 I'd be paying for. "You've done so well for yourself." "We always knew you would," my father added. "That's why we invested so much in you." Invested. That word should have been my warning, but I was too desperate for crumbs of affection to hear the threat beneath it. I flew to Chicago on Monday morning. The conference was intense, back-to-back meetings and presentations, networking dinners that lasted until midnight. But I was good at my job, and I could feel the executives taking notice. My boss pulled me aside on Wednesday to tell me that a VP position was opening up in the spring, and she was recommending me for it. The salary would be close to $200,000 a year, plus stock options. I called my parents that night to share the good news. My mother answered, sounding distracted. I could hear music and voices in the background, another party. "That's wonderful, honey," she said, her voice flat. "Listen, I have to go, we have guests. Call back later." She hung up before I could say I love you. Not that I'm sure I would have. Those words had always felt foreign in our family, like trying to speak a language you'd never been taught. Thursday afternoon, I was in a strategy session when my phone buzzed. It was a call from my home number. I let it go to voicemail, figuring my parents needed something that could wait. But then it rang again. And again. During a break, I stepped out to call back, irritated at the interruption. My father answered on the first ring. "Annabelle, finally. Listen, I need you to check something for me when you get back." "What's that policy number for the homeowner's insurance? I need to file a claim." My stomach dropped. "A claim, Dad? What happened? Is the house okay?" Yeah, everything's fine. Just a small water leak, nothing major. But I need that policy number." Something in his voice was off, too casual, too rehearsed. "Dad, if there's a leak, you need to call a plumber immediately. There's one on speed dial on the landline in the kitchen." "Already taken care of," he said quickly. "Just get me that number when you can. No rush." "I'll email it to you tonight," I said slowly. "But seriously, if there's damage." "I said it's handled, Annabelle. Jesus, you worry too much. That's your mother's influence. He laughed, that forced chuckle he used when he wanted to change the subject. Hey, I gotta go. Someone's at the door. Wait, Dad is Mom there. Can I talk to her? She's out shopping with Margaret. I'll tell her you called. Love you. He hung up. I stood in the hallway of the Hyatt Regency, staring at my phone, feeling cold, despite the overheated air. My father had never said I love you to me in my life. Not once. Not at graduations, not at birthdays, not even when I'd paid off their crushing debt. The words felt like a smokescreen, like he was trying to distract me from something. I went back into the meeting, but I couldn't focus. All I could think about was what kind of damage they'd done to my house. Were they finally going to burn it down with one of my father's forgotten cigarettes? Had they broken something valuable and were trying to cover it up? My mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. That evening, I tried calling again. No one answered. I tried my mother's cell phone, and it went straight to voicemail. I sent texts. Nothing. By 9 p.m. Chicago time, I was pacing my hotel room seriously, considering flying back early. But my presentation was Friday morning, the culminating event of the entire conference. I couldn't leave. I barely slept that night. Friday morning, I delivered my presentation on autopilot, but somehow it went well. My boss was beaming. The executives were nodding. Several people came up afterward to tell me how impressed they were. I should have been celebrating. Instead, I was booking the earliest flight back to New York. I landed at LaGuardia at 6 p.m. Instead of taking a car directly home, I stopped at my office to grab some files I'd need for Monday. It was almost 8 when I finally pulled into my driveway in Westchester. The house was blazing with lights music, thumping loud enough that I could feel the bass in my chest before I even opened the car door. There were at least a dozen cars parked on my lawn on the street blocking my driveway. I sat in my rental car for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the anger rising in my throat. They'd promised to keep things quiet while I was gone. They'd promised. The lies shouldn't have surprised me anymore, but they still did. I walked in through the front door, which wasn't even locked, and stopped dead. My living room was packed with people I'd never seen before. The furniture had been rearranged. There was a hole in the wall where they'd apparently tried to mount a TV. Grandma's antique cabinet, the one that held her collection of Chinese tea sets, was gone. Just gone. In its place was a modern monstrosity from IKEA filled with my father's baseball memorabilia. Annabelle, my mother, swept toward me, drink in hand, smile plastered on her face. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, probably worth more than my monthly mortgage payment. You're back early. Come meet everyone, this is our house, she said, gesturing expansively to the crowd. Isn't it gorgeous? Our house. She'd said our house. I felt something crack inside my chest, but I kept my face neutral. Mom, where's Grandma's cabinet? Oh, that old thing, she waved dismissively. We donated it. It was taking up so much space, and Harold needed somewhere to display his collection. You don't mind, do you? I mean, you weren't using it. I wasn't using it. The cabinet that had been in my grandmother's family for 4 generations, that had survived the Cultural Revolution and the trip across the Pacific, that Grandma had specifically told me to treasure, had been donated like it was a piece of junk from a yard sale. Where's Dad? I asked, my voice coming out strangled. In the kitchen with Mark and some of the guys. They're talking business. She leaned in conspiratorially, her breath heavy with wine. Mark thinks we could get at least $1.2 million for this place. The market's crazy right now. The world tilted. What? But she'd already turned away, pulled into conversation with one of her friends. I pushed through the crowd toward the kitchen, my heart hammering. The music was deafening. Someone had spilled red wine on the hardwood floor, and no one had bothered to clean it up. I saw a cigarette burn on the arm of the couch Grandma and I had picked out together. In the kitchen, my father stood with 3 other men around the island, beers in hand, laughing at something. I recognized one of them as Mark Sullivan, a real estate broker my father sometimes played poker with. Mark was exactly the kind of sleazy operator who gave the profession a bad name, always chasing the big commission, ethics optional. Dad, I said, my voice cutting through their laughter. Can I talk to you for a second? He turned and his face did something complicated when he saw me. Surprise, then annoyance, then a forced smile. Annabelle, you're back. How was Chicago? It was fine. I need to talk to you, alone. Sure. Guys, give us a minute. He shooed the others away, but they only moved to the doorway, still within earshot. What's up, kiddo? What's up? I repeated incredulously. Dad, there are people I've never met in my house. Mom threw away. Grandma's cabinet. There's a hole in my wall. And she just said something about selling the house. What the hell is going on? His face hardened. Lower your voice, we have guests. I don't care about your guests. This is my house. Is it though? He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. Seems to me your grandmother would want this house to belong to family. And we're family, aren't we? The floor dropped out from under me. What are you saying? I'm saying that your mother and I have been living here for months, taking care of the place. We've made improvements. We've invested our time and energy. In some states that gives us rights. You've invested. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You've destroyed my house. You threw away irreplaceable family heirlooms. You've been throwing parties and running up bills and... We gave you life, he roared, slamming his beer down on the counter. The room went quiet. Even the music seemed to fade. You wouldn't exist without us. Everything you have, everything you are, is because of us. And you have the nerve, the audacity to stand here and complain about a few parties. I stood there, shaking, tears burning in my eyes. Everyone was staring at us. My mother appeared in the doorway, looking mortified, but not at my father. At me. For causing a scene. Annabelle, honey, let's not do this now, she said in that syrupy voice she used when she wanted to manipulate me. You must be tired from traveling. Why don't you go upstairs and rest, and we'll talk about this tomorrow. Go to my room. That's what she really meant. Go away and stop embarrassing them in front of their friends. Stop being difficult. Stop having boundaries. I looked at my father, at his red face and defensive stance. I looked at my mother, at her fake concern and designer dress bought with my money. I looked at Mark Sullivan in the doorway, smirking like he knew a secret I didn't. And I realized that Vivian was right. This wasn't love. This had never been love. Fine, I said quietly. I'll go upstairs. I walked through the crowd without looking at anyone, climbed the stairs to my bedroom, and closed the door. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my phone, but I managed to pull up my contacts and call Vivian's cell. She answered on the second ring. Anna, what's wrong? You were right, I whispered. About everything, I need your help. I'm here, she said, her voice immediately all business. Tell me what happened. I told her about the party, about the cabinet, about my father's comment about having rights to the house. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Anna, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Don't react to anything I'm about to tell you, okay? Just listen. Okay. Your father is planning something. That comment about having rights that wasn't just anger talking. He's been researching squatters' rights or adverse possession, or possibly trying to establish some kind of claim to the property. And if Mark Sullivan is involved, they're probably looking to sell. My blood ran cold. They can't sell my house, it's in my name. Not if they forge your signature or create a fake power of attorney. Anna, I've seen this happen before. Family members who have access to important documents, who know all your personal information. Identity theft among family members is more common than you'd think. I felt sick. What do I do? First thing Monday morning, we're going to my office and we're going to pull your credit report. We're going to check for any accounts or loans you didn't open. Then we're going to figure out exactly what documents they have access to. Do you have a safe? Yes, in my closet. Grandma's jewelry, important papers, the deed to the house. Check it, right now, call me back. I ended the call and went to my closet, stepping over the pile of my mother's clothes she'd apparently decided to store in my room. The safe was behind a false panel in the wall, something Grandma had installed years ago. I pulled it open and entered the combination. Empty. The safe was completely empty. The deed was gone. My birth certificate, my passport, my social security card, all my grandmother's jewelry, every important document I owned. Gone. I called Vivian back, and when she answered I couldn't speak at first. It's all gone, I finally managed. Everything. Fuck. Vivian rarely cursed. Okay, we're escalating this. I'm coming to you, don't say anything to them. Don't confront them, just act normal until I get there. Can you do that? I don't know. You can, you're stronger than you think. I'll be there in 45 minutes. Stay in your room. I hung up and sat on my bed numb. The music thumped below me. People laughed and shouted. My parents' party continued in my house, surrounded by my things that they were systematically destroying or stealing. And I'd let it happen. I'd been so desperate for their love, so conditioned to believe I owed them everything that I'd handed them the keys to destroy me. I don't know how long I sat there. It felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. Then my phone rang. It was my home number again. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Annabelle, hey, it's Dad again. Listen about that insurance thing. I told you I'd email you the information. Right. Actually, I found the paperwork in your office, but there's something else. I need you to sign a few documents. Just formality stuff, making sure the house insurance covers all of us while we're living here. Mark drew them up, very standard. Mark drew them up. My father's real estate broker friend had drawn up documents he wanted me to sign about my house. What kind of documents? Just liability stuff, nothing major. But the insurance company needs them by Monday, or they're going to drop the policy. Can you come down and sign them? We're all here, Mark brought them over. I'm tired, Dad, I'll look at them tomorrow. Annabelle, his voice turned hard. This is important. Stop being difficult and come downstairs. I said tomorrow. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking again, but this time from anger instead of fear. They weren't even trying to be subtle anymore. They wanted me to sign documents drawn up by Mark Sullivan about my house. Documents they were trying to rush me into signing without reading, without having my own lawyer review. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Don't be rude, come down and sign the papers. Stop embarrassing us. I didn't respond. Instead, I started looking through my room for what else might be missing. My laptop was gone from my desk, my backup hard drive, the small amount of cash I kept in my nightstand. I opened my jewelry box, and sure enough, everything valuable had been taken. They'd left the costume jewelry, the cheap stuff, probably thinking I wouldn't notice right away. Another text from my father. Fine, be a brat. We'll talk about this tomorrow. You owe us better than this. Vivian called. I'm 5 minutes away. I'm parking down the street. I don't want them to know I'm there yet. Can you come down and let me in through the side door? Yes. I waited until I heard my father's voice boom out from downstairs, probably telling another story to his captive audience. Then I crept down the back stairs and through the mudroom to the side entrance. Vivian was waiting dressed in jeans and a sweater instead of her usual power suit, looking ready for battle. Show me, she said. We went back upstairs, and I showed her the empty safe, explained about the missing laptop and jewelry, told her about the documents my father wanted me to sign. She documented everything with her phone, taking photos and videos, her face growing grimmer by the minute. This is bad, Anna. This is really bad. They're not just mooching off you anymore. This is theft, this is fraud, and if those documents say what I think they say. She shook her head. We need to move fast. Do you trust me? Yes. Then here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow you're going to act normal. You're going to go downstairs, make small talk, be the dutiful daughter. You're going to tell them you'll look at the documents, but you need time to read through them carefully. Buy us time. Time for what? Time for me to file emergency motions with the court. Time for us to freeze your assets and put alerts on all your accounts. Time for us to get ahead of whatever they're planning. She grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. But Anna, I need to know. Are you ready to go to war with them? Because once we start this, there's no going back. It's going to get ugly. They're going to say horrible things. They're going to play the victim. They're going to turn people against you. They already say horrible things, I whispered. They already see me as nothing but a bank account. Then let's empty that account before they can. Vivian stayed with me that night, sleeping on the floor of my room, while the party raged until 3 a.m. When silence finally fell over the house, she left through the side door unseen. I barely slept, lying awake and staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I was about to do. Saturday morning, I went downstairs. The house was a disaster. Empty bottles everywhere, food ground into the carpet, cigarette burns on multiple surfaces. My father was snoring on the couch. Mark Sullivan passed out in the armchair. My mother was nowhere to be seen, probably sleeping off her hangover in the master bedroom that used to be mine. I made coffee, cleaned the kitchen, like the good daughter I'd been trained to be, and waited. Around noon, my father stumbled in, squinting against the light. "Annabelle, about last night." He didn't sound apologetic, more wary. "It's fine," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I was tired and overreacted. You said you have documents for me to look at." His face brightened immediately. Yeah, Mark left them on the dining room table. Just standard stuff, like I said. You sign we're all protected." I went to the table and picked up the manila folder. Inside were 3 documents dense with legal language. I pretended to read them carefully, using the time to take photos of every page with my phone. "This is pretty complicated," I said. "I want to make sure I understand everything before I sign. Can I take the weekend to look them over?" My father's smile faltered. "The insurance company needs them Monday. Then I'll read them today and tomorrow." "Don't worry, Dad. I'll take care of it." I put my hand over his. I always do, don't I? He relaxed slightly, that easy manipulation still working on him because he wanted to believe I was still under his control. "That's my girl. You know we're only thinking about what's best for the family." I smiled at him and went back upstairs, my skin crawling. As soon as I was in my room, I sent the photos to Vivian with a 911 tag. She called me 2 minutes later. "Holy shit, Anna. These aren't insurance documents. This is a quitclaim deed transferring your house to your parents. This is a power of attorney giving them authority over all your financial decisions. And this." She paused, and I could hear her breathing heavily. "This is a document declaring you mentally incompetent and requesting guardianship." The room spun. What? They're trying to take everything, not just the house. Everything. They're going to claim you're not capable of managing your affairs, get themselves appointed as your guardians, sell your house and control your money. "Anna, if you'd signed these." "But I didn't," I interrupted, my voice surprisingly steady. "And I'm not going to. What's our next move? How fast can you pack a bag?" 5 minutes. "Do it. Essential documents, clothes, anything you can't replace. I'm sending a car for you. You're staying at my place until we sort this out. And Anna, don't tell them you're leaving, just go." But I didn't leave quietly. I couldn't. As I was packing my bag, my phone rang. It was my home number again. For some reason, I answered it and just held it to my ear without saying anything. "So the little bitch is finally reading the papers." My father's voice came through slightly muffled. He'd called me but hadn't realized I'd answered. He must have pocket-dialed me. "Mark, you sure this is all legal?" "Completely legal." That was Mark's voice. "Once she signs, you can declare her incompetent, get guardianship and sell the house. I've got 3 buyers lined up already. We're looking at a 1.3 million sale. You get about 900K after taxes and my commission. And she can't fight it. Not if we move fast. We put her in a 72-hour psychiatric hold claim. She's a danger to herself. By the time she gets out and can talk to a lawyer, the house is sold and the money's in your account. We'll be long gone." "What about her job?" That was my mother's voice, and I pressed the phone harder against my ear, recording every word. "Won't they ask questions?" "We tell them she had a mental breakdown. It happens. And honestly, Marilyn, you've been complaining about how difficult she's been, how she won't listen, how she's been erratic. That sets up the narrative. We're the concerned parents doing what's best for our unstable daughter." I still can't believe she bought all that crap about the insurance. My father laughed. "That kid is so stupid. Always has been. You know what she told me once, that she loved us. Can you believe that after everything? She actually loves us." "Well, she won't for much longer," Mark said. "But by then you'll have the money, and who cares? She's been a burden on you too long enough. Time for you to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You raised her, you deserve compensation." "Exactly," my mother said. "We gave her life. This house is the least she owes us. And when she comes out of the psychiatric facility, she'll be homeless and broke. Maybe then she'll understand what real struggle is. Maybe it'll teach her some gratitude. Or we just leave her there, my father said. Some of those places you can keep people long-term if you're the legal guardian. That trust fund from her grandmother has another 100,000 in it. We can drain that too, say it's for her care. They laughed. All three of them laughed. And something inside me died in that moment. The little girl who just wanted her daddy to love her, who thought that if she tried hard enough, she could earn her mother's affection, who believed family meant something. She died listening to her parents plan to rob her, institutionalize her, and leave her with nothing. But something else was born in that moment too. Something cold and clear and absolutely done with being the victim. I hung up the phone and looked at the recording. 23 minutes. I had 23 minutes of them planning to commit fraud, conspiracy, false imprisonment, and identity theft. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I called Vivian back. Change of plans, I said. I'm not running. I'm ending this. Over the next 3 hours, Vivian made a series of calls while I sat in my room, perfectly calm, perfectly still, thinking through every angle. She called her contacts at the police department. She called the district attorney's office. She called a private investigator who owed her a favor. And then she called a real estate investor she'd worked with before, someone who specialized in fast cash purchases. Anna, listen carefully, she said around 6 p.m. I think I have a solution, but it's nuclear. If you do this, there's no coming back from it. Your parents will hate you. They might press charges. They'll definitely try to drag you through the courts. Tell me. We sell the house, tonight, right now. I have a buyer who will pay cash, close in 48 hours. It's under market value. You'll only get about $980K, but you'll have liquid assets they can't touch. We put the money in a trust account at my firm. They can't access it without a court order, which they'll never get. Then we call the police and have them arrested for identity theft and conspiracy to commit fraud. Do it, I said without hesitation. Anna, do it. All of it. I'm done being their victim. The real estate investor arrived at 8 p.m. His name was David Chen. No relation, though he raised an eyebrow when I told him my name. He was a 40-something guy with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Vivian had briefed him on the situation, and to his credit, he didn't ask unnecessary questions. The house is worth $1.2 million in the current market, he said, sitting at a Starbucks near my house, while Vivian and I showed him photos and the deed documentation on my laptop. But you need speed, and there are going to be complications with the current occupants. I can do $980K cash closing Monday morning. But Miss Chen, you understand that once we close, these people will have to leave immediately. I'm not running a charity. They'll be evicted, possibly arrested if they refuse to vacate. I understand, I said. That's what I want. He nodded slowly. Okay then, let's do this. We drew up the paperwork right there, Vivian having brought a mobile notary. I signed the sales contract, the deed, everything. David's lawyer called his lawyer. Money was verified, transferred into escrow. By midnight on Saturday, the deal was done, pending the official closing Monday morning. Now what? I asked Vivian as we sat in her car outside my house at 1 a.m. Now we call the police and the DA. We give them the recording, the forged documents, all of it. They'll want to move on this quickly, but it might take a few days for warrants. I want to be there when it happens, I said. I want to see their faces. Vivian looked at me for a long moment. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Sunday was the longest day of my life. I stayed at Vivian's apartment in Tribeca, pacing and checking my phone compulsively. The police had the recording. The DA was building a case. David Chen's lawyers were finalizing paperwork. Everything was in motion, a machine of justice I'd set into operation, and all I could do was wait. My parents called 6 times. I didn't answer. They texted, asking where I was when I was coming home, reminding me that the insurance documents needed to be signed first thing Monday. Each message was more urgent than the last, their panic starting to show through. Around 4 p.m. my mother called from a different number. I answered. Annabelle Chen, where are you? We've been worried sick. I'm fine, Mom, just needed some space. Space? What are you talking about? You need to come home right now. We need to talk about those documents. And honestly, your father and I are concerned about your mental state. You've been acting very erratically." There it was. They were already building their narrative, already setting up the story of their mentally unstable daughter. "I'm fine, Mum. I'll be home soon. When we have people coming tomorrow morning, the insurance adjusters, they need those signatures." Insurance adjusters. They weren't even trying to be creative anymore. "I'll be there tomorrow morning, early. We'll take care of everything then." "Promise me, Annabelle, this is important." "I promise, Mom, we'll take care of everything." I hung up and looked at Vivian, who'd been listening on speaker. "They're getting desperate." "Good," she said grimly. "Desperate people make mistakes." That night, I barely slept again. I kept thinking about that 8-year-old girl waiting for her daddy to pick her up from school. I thought about every time I'd apologized for having feelings, every time I'd swallowed my hurt to keep the peace, every time I'd handed over money I'd earned through my own hard work to cover their debts. I thought about my grandmother, who'd worked her whole life to buy that house, who'd survived poverty and revolution, and immigrated to a new country with nothing, who'd wanted to give her granddaughter a safe place to build a life. And I thought about my parents laughing about putting me in a psychiatric facility, about calling me stupid, about reducing me to nothing more than a burden and an ATM they were finally going to discard. By the time dawn broke on Monday morning, I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was just done. The closing happened at 9 a.m. at David Chen's lawyer's office in Manhattan. I signed the final papers, and he transferred $980,000 into the trust account at Vivian's firm. The house was his. I was officially homeless, but holding nearly $1 million in liquid assets my parents could never touch. "The property is yours as of this moment," David said, shaking my hand. "My team is heading there now to secure it and begin eviction proceedings. Miss Chen, I want you to know. I have a daughter your age. What your parents did to you, I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry," I said. "Help me make sure they face consequences." "Oh, they will," he said, and there was steel in his voice. "I'm coordinating with the police. My head of security is a former NYPD captain. They'll handle this by the book, but they won't be gentle." We drove to Westchester in Vivian's BMW, arriving at my former house around 11 a.m. There were already 3 large trucks parked on the street, security personnel in black uniforms creating a perimeter. 2 police cars sat in the driveway, lights off but present. My parents were having another party. Of course they were. The music was loud. People were drinking in the backyard, and I could see my father through the window, laughing with his friends. They thought they'd won. They thought their stupid daughter was going to come home and sign away her life. David Chen's head of security, a massive man named Rodriguez, came over to our car. "We're ready to execute on your signal, Miss Chen. The police have the warrants. They're waiting for you." "Give me 5 minutes," I said. "I want to talk to them first." Vivian looked at me sharply. "Anna, that's not a good idea." "I don't care. I've earned this." I got out of the car and walked toward the house, Rodriguez following at a discreet distance. I opened the front door and stepped inside. The party noise washed over me, but it felt distant, like I was watching everything through glass. My father saw me first. "Annabelle, finally, Jesus, where have you been? Did you bring the documents?" Everyone was looking at me now. 30, maybe 40 people, all of them witnesses. Perfect. "No, Dad," I said clearly. "I didn't bring the documents." His face darkened. "Annabelle, we talked about this." "Actually, you talked." I listened. I pulled out my phone. "I've been doing a lot of listening lately. Want to hear something interesting?" I played the recording. My father's voice filled the room, tinny through my phone speaker, but perfectly audible. "So the little bitch is finally reading the papers. Konrang Dongulam?" The room went silent. People started looking at each other uncomfortable. My mother appeared from the kitchen, her face going white as she heard her own voice coming from my phone. "She's just a burden, an ATM machine. When the money runs out, we throw her away." "Turn that off," my father said, his voice dangerous. "We're going to put her in a psychiatric facility, drain her trust fund, leave her homeless and broke. Maybe then she'll understand real struggle." I said, "Turn it off." He lunged toward me, but Rodriguez stepped between us, 8-year-old me. This is what real protection looked like. "You need to step back, sir," Rodriguez said calmly. "This is my house," my father screamed. "Get out, all of you, get out!" "Actually," I said, my voice steady and cold, "it's not your house, it's his house." I pointed to David Chen, who had just walked in with 2 uniformed police officers. "I sold it Saturday night. You're trespassing." The room erupted. People started shouting questions. My mother began crying loud, dramatic sobs. Mark Sullivan tried to slip out the back door but found more security personnel blocking it. "Ladies and gentlemen," David Chen said loudly, "this property has been sold. You are all trespassing. You have 10 minutes to leave the premises voluntarily, or you will be arrested." The party guests scattered like roaches when you turn on the light, grabbing purses and jackets, not looking at my parents, desperate to disassociate themselves from the scene. Within 3 minutes, the house was empty, except for my parents, Mark Sullivan, the security team, the police, and Vivian and me. "You bitch," my father hissed at me. "You ungrateful little bitch, after everything we've done for you." "You mean after everything I've done for you," I corrected. "The debt I paid, the house you destroyed, the identity theft." I looked at the police officers. They opened credit cards in my name, they stole my documents, and they were planning to forge my signature, to steal my house and have me committed to a psychiatric facility. One of the officers, a woman named Detective Morrison, stepped forward. "Harold Chen, Marilyn Chen, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, and attempted extortion." She began reading them their rights, while her partner moved to cuff them. My father fought. Of course he did. He swung at the officer and earned himself an additional charge of assaulting a police officer. My mother went limp sobbing, playing the victim to the last. Mark Sullivan tried to claim he didn't know anything about it, that he was just doing his job, but Detective Morrison had heard the recording too. As they were being led out in handcuffs, my mother looked back at me. "How can you do this to your own mother? I gave you life." I looked her in the eye, this woman who'd spent 30 years teaching me I was worthless, who'd laughed about destroying me, who saw me as nothing but a source of money. "And I gave you everything else. We're even now." "You'll regret this," my father screamed as they pushed him toward the police car. "You'll be sorry, we're your family." "No," I said quietly, though I don't think he heard me. "You were just people who happened to share my DNA." The police cars pulled away. David Chen's team began documenting the property damage and preparing to secure it. Vivian stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. I'd just had my parents arrested. I'd sold my grandmother's house. I'd blown up my entire family in the most spectacular way possible, and I felt free, I said. For the first time in my life, I feel free. The aftermath came swift. Harold got 2 years in prison. Marilyn, 18 months with mandatory therapy, and Mark Sullivan lost his real estate license with a year in county jail. The civil suits gave me a moral victory. Though they had nothing left to take, I returned every letter from jail unopened, blocked every contact method, and hired a privacy protection company to ensure they could never find me. With the house money, I bought a penthouse in Boston and took the VP position. I threw myself into therapy with Dr. Kowalski, learning what healthy relationships actually looked like. Some days I'd feel guilty, wonder if I'd been too harsh. Then I'd remember that recording them laughing about destroying me, and I'd know I owed them nothing. Vivian became the family I chose. She introduced me to her girlfriend Maya, and the 3 of us became inseparable. They helped me move, supported my career, and even helped me get ready for my first real date with James, a sweet software engineer who knew nothing about my past. I finally learned what love without conditions looked like. 2 years later, standing on my balcony watching sunset over Boston Harbor, my phone rang. An attorney named Robert Whitmore informed me my father had died of a heart attack in prison. He needed someone to claim the body. "Let the state have it," I said. "I'm not his next of kin. I'm not his anything. Miss Chen, I understand there's bad blood, but Mr. Whitmore, my father spent my entire life teaching me I was worthless. He tried to steal everything I had. He laughed about putting me in a psychiatric facility. I owe him nothing, not even a funeral." I hung up, poured wine, and had dinner with Vivian and Maya. We laughed, made plans for Portugal, and I went to bed in my beautiful apartment with the door locked and my life entirely my own. My father was dead, and I felt nothing but free. Some people say you should forgive your parents no matter what that family is, everything. But those people never had parents who saw them as an ATM machine. Those people never heard their mother laugh about destroying them. Those people never had to choose between survival and familial obligation. I chose survival. I chose myself. And I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. You don't owe anyone your suffering, not even the people who gave you life. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who never loved you in the first place. My name is Annabelle Chen. I'm 32 years old. I have a career I love, friends who actually care about me, and a life I built with my own hands. I don't have parents anymore, but I have something better. I have myself whole and unbroken, no longer anyone's burden. Freedom is priceless, and I finally bought mine. So what's the price of your freedom? What would you give up to finally put down a burden you've been carrying your whole life? Drop a comment below and share your story. And if you found strength in mine, hit that like button and subscribe. Sometimes we all need to hear that it's okay to choose ourselves. Because it is okay. It's more than okay. Sometimes it's the only way to survive.